Good day, fellow deal makers. Welcome to the Deal Scout. On today's show, we're going to have a conversation with a fellow Ocalian. We grew up in the same area together. We crossed paths and recently reconnected on LinkedIn to share the story of Mr. Jason. Welcome to the show, bud. I'm glad to have you here.
Glad to be here, my friend. And I was just as surprised when I learned you're from Ocala. We have friends in common and everything else, so it's just
Yeah.
too funny. I'm sure we
Yeah.
crossed paths plenty of times.
Yeah, man. All right. So we were just talking, and you're like, hey, every once in a while I fly to Ocala. And that's an interesting thing that I don't know if I've heard anybody ever say that. I fly to Ocala. Why don't you kind of give an idea of, who you are and what kind of guy flies to Ocala?
That's right. So I come from a very entrepreneurial family. My parents, still in Ocala, have a pest control business, and I grew up killing bugs with dad. Like that was like how I got the entrepreneurial bug from that. And it taught me so much. It taught me a lot about customer service. You're a sweaty, stinky bug guy in August in Florida, and you have to convince somebody to let you into their house. Like you have to get real good at sales real quick, right? So I just learned so much. I also learned probably something even more profound. We grew up when we first moved to Florida. We actually lived in a motel off of Highway 40 by the old Wild Waters to give you
Yeah.
some flashbacks of Wild Waters and all that. For those of you not in Ocala, that's like an old water park we used to have back in the olden days, but they tore it down. We lived in a motel and then we, did eventually move into a house, but we grew up like less than middle class. I got to see mom and dad, husband and wife run a business together and pour everything in it. And even when things look rough, they still kept forward on that path. And it was just so fascinating to see that. The other aspect we got to see is dad had a lot of wealthy clients. He also had a lot of clients in poverty, we'll say. And I got to see both worlds. I remember walking into a wealthy person's home and going, okay, what do wealthy people do? Because I want to be wealthy and I'm going to do the things they do. I remember walking in their offices and it's covered with books. I'm like, I should start reading more books and all these things. And then you walk in someone who has a roach infested house and everything else, and you go, ooh, I don't want to be like this. And it's 11 o'clock and they're still sleeping. Like I built as a 12-year-old kid very quickly
Mm.
what successful people do and what unsuccessful people do. And I saw it lived out through my parents and through their clientele as well. So although I didn't go into the bug business, I was bit by the aviation bug, as you alluded to. And how I ended up paying for my first flight lessons was not just killing bugs with dad, but dad said, anything you upsell my clients, I'll let you keep and we'll put it towards your flight lessons. And I said, anything? He goes, anything. So I would sell them, hey, Mrs. Johnson, I noticed your driveway needs to be pressure washed. Can I pressure wash that for you? Or hey, Mr. Smith, there's a lot of weeds in the backyard. And I was just doing the grunt work that no one else wanted to do because I was pursuing that dream. Like learning to fly is not cheap. So
Mm.
we had to kind of go all in on this. And just, I have amazing parents who really kind of gave me that springboard, taught me sales, taught me a lot very, very um, early on.
Man, that's cool. So, what's funny about, the Zoom platform is every once in a while, like a AI bot tries to get in and be a part of our conversation. So
Oh, yeah.
I said
Did you
no to
boot him
one of
out?
them. So if you heard a
Yeah.
beep, that's what it was. But in your story, what I love, Jason, is you got to see almost like the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. You got to see rich
Mhm.
customer, poor customer, and you got to see what successful people do. What, mostly successful people are rich, right? But what depends how you determine what success is. But you
Sure.
got to see
Sure.
what rich people do and what poor people, do, and you started going, this is what I want for my life, and this is what I
Yeah.
don't want. I don't think a lot of 12-year-olds have that kind of intuition or kind
Mhm.
of have that foresight to say, I want this, don't want that. Like during that time, like why do you think you versus your friends had that kind of insights?
That's a great insight. And I didn't have a lot of friends, oddly enough. I was
Really?
always kind of the weird kid. Um, while kids were playing video games and stuff, I was too busy pressure washing someone's driveway. And mind you, I went to the downtown Ocala library when it was actually downtown, that little hexagon
Remember?
building. And I would grab Ziglar on CD and John Maxwell, and I had my Sony Walkman, and I would put it in my pocket or on the lawnmower mowing somebody's lawn, and I'm listening to Ziglar while I'm mowing somebody's lawn. And
Yeah.
I was always a little bit different. Like kids weren't into reading personal development books and everything else.
Yeah. Man, I listened to almost every single tape and cassette tape. So you have to take it out and
Yeah.
flip it over
Yeah.
and I did the same thing and mine came from a lot of pain growing up without money. And I saw my dad, who was my hero, badass Vietnam vet, right? And I saw him cry to me about money and it freaked me out. And so that's why I always wanted to be rich. Not that rich solves every issue, but
Mhm.
at least you have options, right?
Right.
So what do you think was your motivating cause? Like, why were you doing that? Why were you so interested in mowing lawns? Why were you so interested in upselling and one day becoming a pilot?
Well, that was the thing. I wanted to become a pilot. I didn't realize I was setting myself up with this mindset and everything else. I just knew I wanted to be a pilot. And again, seeing wealthy people had books. So I'm going to start listening to books. And I started on audiobooks. I wasn't a big reader. I'm like, well, take the excuses away. Just listen to the thing, Jason.
Yeah.
Right. So we did that, but I just want to be a pilot. So we went through all the flight training. At 16 years old, I soloed at the Ocala airport, flew an airplane by myself for the first time. At 17, became a private pilot, hustled through everything. And by 18 years old, I was a flight instructor. And I'll never forget, I became a flight instructor. And this is when entrepreneurship really hit home for me. I had been a loyal customer of this flight school. I'm now a flight instructor. Typically, they would hire you, right? They said, Jason, this is great. We would love to hire you, especially as someone homegrown. You started with us knowing nothing. Now you're a teacher. We'd love to hire you. We're going to pay you 11 bucks an hour. I thought, wait a second. For the past 3, 4 years, I've been paying you guys 25 bucks an hour. And I got my first taste to go, wait, I pay 25 an hour. They only give those guys 11 bucks an hour. And he's just in his office all day. This guy who owns this flight school. I'm like, I'm on the wrong side of this equation here. So from saving up some money, I had $10,000. And this is going to sound crazy. I took that $10,000 and I bought my first airplane. Now, just picture in your mind what a $10,000 airplane looks like. I still own it to this day, actually, because it's kind of like Papa John's first delivery car. Like you don't want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Um, 1975 cloth seats. So picture in
Nice.
Florida your whole life, everybody's sweating into cloth seats. Like
Mm.
it was yucky is the word my wife used to describe it when she saw it. I'm trying to take her on a date and she's like, this is a yucky airplane. It had chips of paint where they just kind of did the green chromate on it. So it looked like camouflage. Like it was an ugly plane. But I said, you know what? I'm not going to work for somebody else. I got my own airplane. I got some insurance. I'm going to go teach and I'm going to make money on my time and the airplane's time because all these Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, John Maxwell books say you got to get leverage, Jason. You got to make leverage in your business. So that was my early attempt to begin creating leverage in my business.
No kidding, man. So when you were like, I got 10,000 bucks, I'm 18 years old, I went and bought I was thinking, and you're from Ocala, jacked up pickup truck, right? That's what every 18-year-old in
That's
Ocala
so right.
buys. And you bought an airplane. Um,
Yeah.
so interesting. You bought an asset,
Mhm.
right? Well, some planes for some people are not
No,
assets, but for you, it was an asset. What makes a
very much
difference?
so.
What's the difference between an asset and a liability, the way you saw it for the airplane?
I looked at it as, yes, this is all of my money, but this is an asset to produce further money, right? I'm tracking with you. I don't believe everything is truly an asset, right? If you're net negative on your cash flow, plus with inflation, you may be underwater when you try to leave that thing, like a boat or something along those lines.
Yeah. All right. So you bought a plane, a
Yeah.
yucky plane, right? Cloth seats
Yes.
and the thing. So maybe we'll do a interview one day from the yucky plane. But you bought the plane and you started teaching students fast. Like
Mhm.
walk us through the journey
Sure.
of. I'll just do a little spoiler alert. By the way, guys, he sold a business for 8 figures. Okay, so did okay for himself building this. So now let's walk into the story of what happened there.
Sure. So back to this idea of leverage, right? I can't be everywhere. My thought process is, well, I want to go to a big business. I need more instructors. I need more airplanes. And I started getting insurance quotes to do that and looking at finance. And I'm going, this is a very highly leveraged business to go create a flight school. I'm like, I don't know. Number one, I couldn't do that. I'm 18, 19, 20 years old. Like, who's going to give me loans on brand new airplanes from Cessna or Piper or whatever it is? So at the time, I was teaching a ground school at the Ocala airport, and it was in person. It was every Wednesday night. And I was limited by a sign there that said, fire marshal limits 35 people in this room. And I would turn people away because of this limitation. I said, well, this isn't leverage. And about that time, this little thing called YouTube was coming up. And it wasn't like YouTube in the garage, but it was before Google owned it. And then simultaneously, in this serendipitous type manner, a little company called GoPro was starting up. And I would go to Daytona and Jacksonville a lot. I was a little bit of a surfer, and I'd see these surfers with these GoPro cameras. And I thought, I can put those on the airplane. So I took the last little bit of money I had. I bought two Hero One GoPro cameras, if you remember those.
Yeah.
I left the left seat empty. Like Josh, if you and I went and took a flight lesson, you would sit in the left seat, I would sit in the co-pilot, the right seat. I left the left seat empty. I put a camera like where your view would be. I put another camera outside, and I went out and I flew an entire flight lesson, filmed everything, went back to iMovie, edited everything, and started putting these flight lessons on YouTube. And sure enough, the first video got 12 views. The next one got 24. The next one 40. And it just kept growing from there. I thought, wow, maybe this is the secret. Maybe I can teach people to fly on the internet. And when I said that to everyone except my parents, thought I was crazy. My parents were like, Jason, if you think you can do it, you go do it. But everyone else said, there's no way you can teach people to fly on the internet. I said, I'd like to give it a try. I teach ground school in person. Now I'll just teach it to a camera, smile into a camera. I can teach it in the airplane, show the flight maneuvers, show the landings, show all these different things, radio communications with different towers and controllers. So I began to do that and create leverage in the business. That led to us launching M0A, Mach Zero Aviation, because we fly little slow airplanes when we're learning to fly. And we launched that, put everything behind a paywall. And I began to use YouTube as my marketing strategy with the online ground school behind a paywall, which was a monthly subscription, and gave away some great content on the premise of, hey, you think this free content I'm putting out here on YouTube's good? Come back, go to m0a.com and check out the stuff behind the paywall. I was given, at one point, literally hundreds of endorsements. That's to take different tests, everything else, each and every month, all across the country. We ended up reaching about 250,000 pilots. There's only about 450,000 pilots in the United States. So we really, really dominated market share-wise and continue to do so. And I'm skipping a lot of steps there, but that's really kind of the nexus of where this all started, was this idea of, I can't be everywhere. I've got to create leverage and
Yeah.
use the internet to do it.
Look back on your journey to maybe an event where, if that luck didn't happen, if that event didn't happen, you might not be where you are today. What is that event?
I know exactly what it is, and it was a really, really hard event. So obviously, starting this thing out, it was very, very lean. I make it sound like it was all, unicorns and rainbows. It was not. It was a very, very lean start. And I remember a month in particular where I went to leave the house to go to the airport, and there was a tow truck sitting at the end of my driveway, and he was waiting for my car. Like I was behind on that payment. Later that week, the sheriff came and put a notice on the door that, hey, we're foreclosed on this place in 30 days unless you figure it out between you and the bank. And I'm just in this really ugly place. I'm putting everything into this business, just like I saw my parents do, but I'm behind on payments and screwing up my credit and everything else. And one day I went out to the airport. I'll never forget that that same yucky airplane I was telling you about. I went to do a takeoff, filming some videos. I was at the Denellen airport and had an engine failure on takeoff. Took off. I only have 4 cylinders. I lost number 3 cylinder. The cylinders are horizontally opposed. So when you lose one cylinder, the whole airplane's going back, left and right, left and right. I wasn't losing altitude, but I wasn't gaining altitude. So I kind of brought it back around and made a safe landing. The airplane is covered in oil. There is smoke everywhere. And I remember just crying, like in that moment. Like, I don't have the money to fix this thing. This is my only way of making money. Like, what else am I going to do? And a mechanic came to me and said, hey, I'll buy your airplane. That same that same airplane I was telling you about. And I said, wow, really? Like in its current condition? He said, yeah. And the money was just enough to clear my debts, get caught up on my mortgage, caught up on my payments, everything else. But now I'm a flight instructor with no airplane. And you know what it forced me to do? It forced me to go all in on going online. Um, yeah, Napoleon Hill talks about in Think and Grow Rich, that story of burning the boats. Like, while I didn't perfectly burn the boats, the
You
boats
almost
were
burnt
burned
the
for
plane
me.
down.
I almost burnt the plane down. That's right. Um, I had no choice but to make this online business work. So I went all in on a flight instructor without an airplane, just teaching to a camera now, airspace, rules, regulations, radio communications. I'm gonna teach as much as I can, borrowing friends' planes when I can to film in. And that was the big moment for me where I realized, stop taking on students, focus solely on this thing. And there were some lean times there. But it's sometimes when your back's against a wall and you have no other choice but to succeed, like you find a way,
Yeah.
you know?
During that time where it looks really dark, and like I've had this, I used to hate the first and the 15th of every month, right? Because that's
Ooh.
when most bills come out, and you're looking and it's the 31st, right? And the next day, you already have eviction notices prepared. Like they know you're not paying, you can't pay. How do where do you turn to in those situations? What goes on inside? What prevented you from just hanging it all up and go getting a job at Publix or fill in the blank?
I knew the goal, right? I knew that there was light at the end of the tunnel. And again, started to keep quoting Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich, but it's a favorite of mine. I was really standing on the principle that he says in the book, in every adversity, there's a seed of a greater advantage. Now, a seed is nothing without soil and water and light and time, right? So I said, okay, there's a seed to all of this, right? This seed is, guess what? Moved back in with mom and dad, set up in the spare bedroom a studio and just grinded it out for 2 years. And was it embarrassing, trying to date and tell people I live with my mom? Like, yeah, no one wanted to date me, right? Because
Yeah.
now I'm a little bit older. It's like, it's not cool to be living with mom and dad anymore. But that's just what it took. It took me to kind of lean back and say, if I'm make this business work, I've got to change some things in my lifestyle. Because you're exactly right. I had more month than I had money consistently. And that was the struggle. And that's where we learned so much about finances, by nearly losing them all.
hmm Zig says this. Zig says this. Money's not that important, but it's pretty close to oxygen, right? When you don't
So
have
true.
it, man, it's so scary. And this parlays into what you guys are doing now. But before we reveal what you and wife, and your mission now, give you guys a little hint. It's around the world of finance. Um, Before we get into that, you built this up, and then you got
Mhm.
to a point where you started making money. You guys became
Yeah.
profitable. Talk to us about the difference in mindset, the difference in field, the difference in what goes on a day-to-day basis with responsibility and fears. Like what happens from going from I got to survive to wow, this thing's growing and we got scale
Mhm.
happening.
Yeah. So we began to get a little traction, right? Making a few $1,000s a month. Nothing exciting, not like moving out of mom's house or anything like that just yet. Um, but the biggest game changer came back to that same word, which is leverage. Here I was the guy on the camera. Actually, what I would do is I'd focus the camera like on my chair. I'd press record. I'd run around, sit in the chair and go, hey, everyone, Jason Schapper here with mzuri.com. I'd run back over, stop the video, upload it via Firewire cable, if you remember that, to my crusty white MacBook, and edit everything in iMovie. Like I was everything. I was answering support tickets, answering the phone. And I thought, if this business is going to grow, like eventually you get to a point, I'm sure someone told me, like, you're the problem, Jason. Like, you are the one holding this business back. You need to hire somebody. Something like, who? I don't have any money to hire anybody. So I put an ad out on Craigslist, believe it or not. I said, where can I get the biggest bang for my buck? I said, probably somebody to film and edit the videos so I can produce content even faster. And I hired a gentleman for a very, very low salary, I'll say, off of Craigslist. And he moved to Ocala for the job. I think he was in the Tampa area, moved to Ocala for the job. And we just clicked And every single day, we eventually rented an old warehouse that didn't have air conditioning, but we filmed every single day. And I was creating content and ideas. I'd tell him I'm ready. We'd go film it and he'd go edit while I was creating content and more ideas. I thought this is leverage. Right now, how do we hire more and sales team and everything else and just growing from there? I was afraid to hire because I was trying to keep everything so close.
Mhm.
And sometimes in business, you have to let go in order to grow.
Got it. So now you have traction, right? Your first
I do.
hire was a film guy, so you can go faster. You can leverage your time to focus more on doing the content. And there's people who love post-production work,
Hmm.
right? It's a
Yeah.
lot
And
of
are way
work.
better than I am. Right.
Yeah. Holy moly, man. Yeah, it's a lot of work creating content. And
Hmm.
then after you do the interview or record the content, then going back and editing stuff out or making it look nice, that's a lot of work. And that's for me, that's the hardest part is
Hmm.
going backwards to create stuff. It takes the joy out of creating on the front end. So
Oh,
you hired that out, then you started hiring sales teams, and then what happened, right? You started getting traction and it started growing. What did that look like? What new challenges happened there?
there was always something. So, um, a big challenge for us, I say us as a team now, and at this point, my wife and I are involved in the business. Like, so it's a whole family business, everything else that adds unique challenges to it. And the most unique challenge came, we were always selling business to consumer.
Mm,
Josh wants to learn to fly. Well, he would go to mzuri.com, sign up, and take our courses. It was that simple. And then one day a college came to us. I said, ooh, here's this leverage thing again, right? I can sell to one client who then sells to their 400 students. But I'll tell you what I wasn't ready for, right? When these colleges, and if anybody's done B2B business, you know this. Oh, the deal flow, the timelines. Now imagine a college trying to time semesters out. I had to go through IT diligence and all security diligence. I'm like, this is a mom and pop business. Like I don't have servers and firewalls and everything else, but they wanted all this stuff. So I had to grow up as a company and evolve. And while we still keep this mom and pop ethos about us, because I believe that I like that scrappy mom and pop, I can pivot and move where I want to, non-institutionalized type vibe. I had to institutionalize some things because that's what the institutions wanted to see. And
mhm.
that forced me to really grow up into a big boy company, to put it kind of in silly terms, but that's really what it is, like, to grow beyond. Um, I remember when we made that switch, we were doing about $100,000 a year for like 2, 3 years in a row. And I just couldn't break away from $100,000 a year. Well, I was happy with it. It was barely breaking even, honestly.
Mhm.
And when we took that approach to be that big boy business and changed that mindset and started thinking bigger after B2B clients, the next year we did 1 million. The next year we doubled again, went to 2 million in top line revenue. And that was the big catalyst and change for us, is you keep your mom and pop values, but you go after some B2B clients as well, to create, yet again, more leverage.
Yeah. Now, you know, there came a knock on your door one day, or, I don't know how the sales process initiated with you. Kind of walk us through that. Was it a knock on the door and someone showed up with a,
Um,
4 foot check? Here you go, Jason, you made it.
yeah,
Here's the check. You
right.
cash out.
Yeah. um, Kinda. I mean, we weren't looking for it. We didn't have a broker or anything like that. And I'll tell you, I'm thankful for the whole syntax of how it happened. We were actually approached by another firm looking to buy us out maybe about 10 months earlier. And the reason that other firm just said, no, we're not interested, is because everything was so messy.
Mm.
QuickBooks was a wreck. And again, I'm sure no one from the IRS is listening, but small business owners, you get it. Sometimes you go to Publix and you use your corporate card and you go on QuickBooks and you call it office meals. Like, don't tell me no, not everybody has done that before in their life.
Yeah.
So you got this company now looking to come in and buy you, and they go, well, you're hardly profitable. I go, yeah, but I pay this through the business. I run that, and that on my cars in there too. And they go, this is all great, Jason, but this is such a spider web to untangle to understand your real profitability. It's not worth the time for us. We're walking. And I was heartbroken. But it woke me up to say, if we're ever going to sell, back to the big boy business mentality, I got to start getting more serious about QuickBooks, and I shouldn't be the one reconciling it. So I hired a real bookkeeper. I stepped up the level of accounting firm I was working with, not like, accounting firms with skyscrapers, but, away from just an Ocala accounting firm and say an Orlando accounting firm, right? A little bit of a bigger step, and started to get more serious about my finances. And lo and behold, 10 months later, it was actually a client that realized like, hey, we're spending a lot of money with these guys. Like, why don't we just buy them? And that's how the conversation started. And they're owned by large private equity. And I mean, the diligence process, as you know, and everything else was tedious, but we were actually ready for it this time because I had the spring training with the other one that I was sad that I lost, but boy, it really prepared us. So back to that idea, in every adversity, there's a seed of a greater advantage. Well, the seed to the first loss was I cleaned up my books. So I was ready for the big boy because this dollar amount was much larger than the other guy was even talking about.
Yeah. What I what I value from, from our conversation now and of the past is you guys are on a mission now, right? You've walked out the door and saw the tow truck. I've seen a few vehicles go on the back of a tow truck, saying goodbye. I've
Yeah.
handed off keys to the bank. I've seen the eviction notices, and that kind of stuff is very scary. It's heart wrenching. The conversations with the spouse or girlfriends at the time or whatever
Yeah.
that is tough to do, and especially if you have kids or a family. So now you guys have sold. You said yes. You went through the
Mhm.
process. You sold, but you didn't just say peace out. I'm done. World. You're diving back in
Right.
with a new adventure, a new mission, probably because of some of the pain you've experienced in the past. Why don't you kind of parlay us into what are you focused on now?
Sure. So we retired for about 48 hours, and then we just decided like, hey, it's time. We have we have greater things to do here on this earth, right? There's a calling and there's a purpose in this family. We just want to fulfill that. So the idea came from aviation, actually. So what we're starting right now is a business called Moolah, which we know is slang for money, and it's investing, savings. It's very similar to like a bank. I can't legally call myself a bank. It's fintech, but that's the premise behind it. You'll get a full debit card, envelope style budgeting system, full and algorithmic AI driven investing, and the demographic is a 30-year-old nurse who makes good money but doesn't understand. Same question: why do I have more month than money? Like that's the demographic we're after, to really set people up, not with just financial literacy, because we're teachers at heart, but propel them on their journey towards financial freedom is the goal with all that. And the premise came from aviation. So at any given point, I have six instruments in my airplane in front of me. And those six instruments tell me what just happened 30 seconds ago, what's happening right now, and what's likely to happen in the next 30 seconds if I keep doing what I'm doing in the airplane, climbing, descending, turning, whatever it is. Why don't we have the same instrument panel for our finances? Why can't I log into my Wells Fargo account and simply see what's happened the past 30 days, what's happening now, and what's going to happen if I don't get my booty in gear and start fixing this stuff? Like, the rent is coming. Why don't you have a smart enough system to say your rent is 1,200 bucks? It pulls on the third every month. I know it's coming and you ain't got the money, right? Like, or stop going to Best Buy and buying TVs. That's what we're really looking to create. It's these guardrails, and not just guardrails, but it's the financial literacy aspect of things. I think there's too many companies, without naming a bunch of names, but just the big banks who preach they're all about financial literacy. Yet you look at their profit and loss statement, they make a lot of money off of NSF fees and late fees and everything else, but they're all about financial literacy, right?
Mhm.
And I'm just like the the opposite of that. Like I want to show people, kind of pull back the curtain and say, hey, the system's not rigged against you, but here's how to play nice with the system so you can propel yourself on your financial journey. That's what I want to show people. So we're not just a banking and investing platform, we're a financial literacy platform, because at the end of the day, I'm a teacher. My wife and I love teaching. We spent 16 years teaching aviation. Now we're just teaching people how to get debt free, make smart investments, and steward their finances.
Yeah. Super cool. So what stage is Mula, in right now as you guys are building that out? Like, give us an idea of where it's at because, we might interview you in a few years and we have a big story to share with the world, but where are you guys
Yeah.
at now?
Yeah. So we've been in development for since about February, chipping away at it. And we're doing a soft launch in December of 2024. And the big splashy launch January of 2025 on the premise of it's a new year, it's my New Year's resolution. I want to get, investing, put one foot in front of the other and start that financial journey. So we're going to start on the investing side. The full investing platform will launch to the public in January, and the savings side, the banking side, will launch about March kind of time frame, debit card, everything else.
Yeah. So you retired for 48 hours. What did those, I know that might be, just an example of how long, but like what did those 48 hours look like?
Um, Very, very happy, right? I mean, so the morning of the close, I was refreshing my bank account so much, waiting for the wire to come through that I locked myself out. The bank's like,
No.
there's some suspicious activity from someone trying to log in multiple times,
Yeah.
and they locked me out. I'm like, no. So I called the bank, got that fixed, and sure enough, the money was there. So first 24 hours, you're like over the moon excited. Wife and I go to dinner and celebrate and everything else. And then, just being honest with you, it was kind of sad after that. Like you realize very quickly, like it's cool to look at a bank account and see it that large.
Yeah.
But okay, but who cares at the end of the day? Like my problem was it was 16 years of my life. And maybe I built an unhealthy soul tie to that business a little bit too. But it was like my baby. I mean, I birthed it. I almost lost it. I built it up again. Like it was kind of sad in a way. Now again, would I change anything? Do I regret it? No, absolutely not. But I think those going through an exit need to be ready for a wave of emotions and make sure you have your spouse or your mentor or whoever like standing by you, knowing that, hey, this is probably, there were high highs and low lows with that.
For sure. I've seen this. We've interviewed 2,000 people over the years of doing podcast interviews, and we have similar stories from other people who've exited, right? And then, this euphoric rush of emotions. Wow, I've never seen that many zeros in a bank account. This is amazing, especially because I lived in a hotel not too long ago. And then that feeling wears off really quick. And some people, um, they go out and look for the next high of some sort. They get
Mm,
into maybe angel investing or gambling, or they're, one success means I'm great at everything, and they dive into
mm,
something else.
yeah.
Um, what advice do you have for other founders who are prior exit, right? Because you had a
Hmm.
really nice exit, and I'm really happy for you guys and thankful for you
Thank you.
guys. For the founder out there who's about to make that exit pull, like
Mhm.
what advice do you have for them?
First off, on the exit side of things, I'm sure I know you preach this, but please make sure you have the legal counsel, the tax counsel. I mean, this is an area to not go cheap and hire, a divorce attorney for your business dealing. Like, please, this is the area to go all out and pay for the fancy law firm and the paralegals and the fancy tax firm. Those are two separate things,
Hmm.
and do that because I made some mistakes along that way, and it slowed down the deal a little bit as well. I could have been a little bit smarter. Again, I wasn't expecting it, but I still had the Rolodex of people I could have called to make introductions to me, and I chose to go my own route. That's one little mistake I made. Um, the other aspect of this is you're exactly right. You come into some money now, how do we steward that money? That's the biggest question. I think that's a bigger test, what we're doing now, than what we did with the last business. Like now I've got some gasoline. The previous business, we bootstrapped. Do I wish I don't know, even know if we had like reggae stuff and the kind of stuff you talk about all the time. I don't even know we had that 16 years ago, to be honest with you. Nor was it even on my radar. Um, Now that I've got, and we're building Moolah with all our own capital. You can't approach everything like you have some Midas touch, right? You're not, yes, you just won big and that's great, but boy, you got to check your ego with that or you will end up losing. Like we've done so much research before even diving into Moolah to make sure this is the market, this is the pricing structure, this is the customer avatar, because I'm not Midas, nor
Yeah,
will I ever be. I'm not aspiring to be, right? That's, you just got to humble yourself a little bit.
yeah. it's hard to be humble after you had some level of success, right? You go from negative bank account to, a bunch of zeros, right? And the time I saw, two big wire transfers go through my account, I look at it and I go, wow, like the my mind went straight to like success and like look at what I've done, but I made a bunch of costly mistakes and money disappears very fast
Yeah.
if not careful and if not building, the next pipeline of it. Um, so you're building a personal finance company, which is amazing, right?
Yes.
Because this gives people insights as to all of the different stages that you've seen, from
Mm,
the living in the hotel to seeing the clients to seeing the wealthy to building and one day you now wealthy. So you have seen it all, maybe not all, but
right.
a lot.
Sure.
When it comes to this Moolah mission, what is the end game? What's the vision? What is why? Like, how do you know you did it?
Do you ever know that you did it? Right. I mean, I want to be, at the end of the day, all I really want to hear is well done, good and faithful servant. Right. That's what I'm really after, to hear. And did I do my calling, what I'm expected to? Um, from a business standpoint, my honest goal with this is to do an IPO.
Oh, cool.
Imagine the company that got so many people started investing. Again, our avatar's 30 years old. This would be your first time investors. You can open an account with $5. Like, let's just get you going, putting one foot in front of the other. Imagine the people that we taught to get started investing, saving, getting debt free, now have an opportunity to have a little piece of that company, right? Through an IPO, through that public launch, ringing the bell. Um, to enjoy that. So that's exciting to me, and that's really the goal. And at the same time, because you're in this world all the time, that's also just the beginning. I call that the goal, but you ring that bell, you celebrate for 48 hours, and it
Mhm.
gets real quick because you got a quarterly, you got quarterly reports, 90 days around the corner. You better get your booty in gear, and start producing profits, continued profits for your shareholders. The story just continues, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, fantastic, Jason. What's a resource that you recommend other founders who might have, well, you built an ed tech company, right? Like that, is that how you would
Yeah.
classify
Yeah,
aviation
ed
ed
tech's a great
tech?
way to put it.
Okay.
You're exactly right. Yeah.
For other people in the industry, what's a good resource for learning, growing, service provider? Like, do you have like maybe a resource? Maybe not service provider. Let's not do any promotion there. But like, do you have a resource of a book or training program or something that you'd recommend to other ed tech founders?
Yeah, it wouldn't just be ed tech founders. I mean, I think anybody that has a business that's listening to this, you have to start with the foundation.
Mhm.
And the foundation is you, right? My dad always said, believing in you starts with you, Jason. So I'll believe in you if you believe in you. And the books like the Think and Grow Rich, I mean, I just like you did the Tony Robbins Personal Power on cassette tape, like these sort of things, like you've got to build the mindset to be confident enough to believe in yourself before you can go start such a business. Now, there's a difference between being confident and being cocky, by the way. Certainly don't want you cocky, but I do want you confident in your abilities. I mean, if you can't think like a millionaire, you're not going to build $1 million business unless you trip into it somehow.
That's true. It's true. My friend Tim says humble swag, right?
Mm,
So be confident, be humble, uh, and then walk with that confidence.
love that.
The it is very hard to grow with an ego. Um,
Mm.
so Jason, where could people connect with you, follow your journey, and learn more?
Sure. So if they want to check everything out, the website is moolah, moo.la, moo.la. Also, we're all over social media. It's Moolah Copilot. I had to work the aviation terminology in there, and that ended up being a popular AI term now, right? With everybody has a Copilot now, Microsoft and everybody else. But it's Moolah Copilot. Any of your platforms, TikTok, YouTube, doesn't matter. Just search Moolah Copilot. You'll find us on there. And we're following the same kind of model we follow with the aviation business, which is we give away some of our best content, as you'll see on there, like how to improve my credit score. Should I buy a home right now? Why did Warren Buffett just sell all this stock? What does that mean for me? All these different shorts and videos and everything else.
Mhm.
with the premise of, hey, sign up for the Moolah app, see even more inside, and take charge of your financial future. Like that's really the premise behind all of this. So whatever platform they're on, search Moolah Copilot, find us. And of course, depending on when they're listening to this, they can find us in the App Store as well.
Super cool. Well, fellow Doom makers, thanks for listening into today's interview with Jason. As always, reach out to our guests, say thanks for being on the show. And if you have a deal that you'd like to talk about, head on over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, maybe get you on the show next. Till then, we'll talk to you all on the next episode. Love you guys. Cheers.